My husband died in a car accident on a rainy Thursday morning. At the funeral, while I was still clutching my son's hand and trying to remember how to breathe, my father leaned in and said, "You should have married someone smarter." Then he turned and walked away. They didn't call, not once. Not for me, not for Micah. 2 months passed. Then, one evening, my phone lit up. My mother's name. A message. "We'd love to stop by. We miss you. We'll bring tea." I knew they found out. They'd learned what Caleb left behind, his portfolio, his will, everything. So I said yes. And when they arrived, smiling at my front door, my 8-year-old son handed them a gift bag. Inside was a printed copy of the will, and on top of it, a sticky note in my handwriting. "We know why you're here." My name is Amelia Dane. I'm 34, a mother, a widow, and I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside Annapolis, Maryland. It's the kind of place where people wave from their porches and mow their lawns every Saturday. The houses all look the same, but inside mine, everything changed on September 14th. It was a Thursday. It had been raining hard that morning, the kind of rain that makes traffic a nightmare. Caleb left early for work. He kissed Micah's forehead while he was still half asleep, gave me a quick hug in the kitchen, and grabbed the protein bar I always packed in his bag. I still remember the way he smiled as he walked out. Calm, focused. He was always like that, steady, no matter what. By noon, he was gone. A semi-truck lost control on a slick highway ramp. Caleb's car was crushed. The officer told me it was quick. He didn't suffer. I nodded as if that made any part of it easier to carry. In the days after, everything blurred. I answered questions. I picked out a casket. I tried to explain death to an 8-year-old who thought his dad would be home in time to watch cartoons. Micah asked if we could leave the porch light on for him, just in case he got lost. People came and went. Neighbors dropped off casseroles. Friends texted prayers. But my parents, my own parents, barely looked at me during the service. My father, Gordon West, is a retired engineer. He's sharp, methodical, and proud of it. My mother, Lillian, follows his lead in everything. When Gordon speaks, she nods. When he disapproves, so does she. Gordon never liked Caleb. He once called him a gentle failure. He thought Caleb was too soft, too quiet, not ambitious enough. Caleb didn't dress like a man chasing status. He didn't brag. He invested, saved, built our future quietly. But my father didn't see that. He wanted loud success. Titles, suits, handshakes, ego. At the funeral, I stood by Caleb's casket with Micah holding my hand. My father walked up, leaned in, and said the words I'll never forget. "You should have married someone smarter." I didn't respond. I couldn't. He walked away before I had the chance. My mother followed him. They didn't say another word. They left before we even got home. In the weeks that followed, the silence from them became louder than grief. No calls, no visits, not even a card for Micah's birthday, which was just 3 weeks after the funeral. I was navigating single motherhood, trauma, estate paperwork, and sleepless nights, completely alone. Micah never asked where they were. He just stopped mentioning them. I think he felt their absence before I could explain it. The house felt empty. Caleb's scent still lingered on his favorite sweatshirt hanging over the kitchen chair. His laptop was left open on our desk, the last email he never got to send frozen on the screen. At night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, wondering how I'd raise our son alone. Then one day, I found something. I was sorting through the bedroom closet, trying to make space, when I opened a small, fireproof box Caleb kept locked. Inside were folders, papers, neatly labeled statements, his investment portfolio. I knew he was good with money, but I had no idea. There were shares in multiple tech startups, index funds, real estate holdings, and over $2.4 million spread across accounts I never knew existed. He'd built it slowly, consistently, and quietly. Caleb never talked about money like a prize. It was security. It was love, in spreadsheets and planning. There was also a copy of his will. Everything, every share, every cent, every piece of real estate was left to me and Micah. I sat on the edge of the bed holding those documents, stunned. Not because I felt rich, because I felt something else. Seen. Protected. Caleb had planned for this. Somehow, he knew he needed to take care of us even in death. I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet. I wasn't ready to share any part of him, not even the legacy he left behind. 2 days later, I got the text from my mother. "Hi, honey. We've been thinking of you and Micah. Can we stop by tomorrow? We'll bring tea." They didn't ask how I was. They didn't say sorry. They just wanted to come over. I didn't respond right away. I stared at the screen for almost an hour. I read the message again and again. I wasn't confused. I was certain. They had found out. Someone told them. Maybe one of Caleb's former co-workers. Maybe they saw something online, but the timing was too precise. They weren't reaching out because they missed us. They were coming for what Caleb left behind, and I was ready. When my parents messaged me, I didn't reply right away. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't even angry. I was calm. Too calm. There's a kind of stillness that comes when your expectations die before the relationship does. I had already buried the version of them that I used to hope for, the warm, dependable parents I thought might someday show up for me. But now they wanted tea and a visit. After 2 months of silence, 2 months of no, how are you? No, can we help with Micah? Not even a passing message when the death announcement ran in the local paper with Caleb's full name and photo. Now suddenly they were interested. I showed the text to Micah. He was sitting on the living room rug, building something with his Legos. "They want to come over tomorrow," I said. "What do you think?" He looked up from his little tower. "Why?" That was the right question. I sat next to him. "I think they heard about the money, about what Daddy left us." Micah squinted, thinking. "So they're coming to get it?" "Maybe not to take it," I said, "but definitely to be close to it." He nodded. "Are you going to let them in?" I hesitated, then said, "Yes. But not because I owe them anything, because I want them to know that I see them clearly now." That night, after Micah went to bed, I pulled out the documents Caleb left behind. His will, the trust paperwork, account statements. I flipped through the pages, not because I needed to reread them, but because I wanted to remember the man who had quietly built this safety net while being ridiculed for not having enough ambition. Caleb never argued with my father. He never raised his voice or defended himself when Gordon mocked his career. Once, when I told him he didn't have to keep putting up with it, he said, "I'm not here to impress your dad. I'm here to protect you and Micah. That's all that matters." He meant it. The next morning, I made a plan. I printed a fresh copy of the will. I took a sticky note and wrote on it in black marker. "We know why you're here." I folded the paper neatly and placed it in a gift bag we had left over from Micah's birthday. It had a bright red ribbon on top, the kind that made it look like something joyful lived inside. When Micah came downstairs, I handed him the bag. "This is for Grandma and Grandpa," I said. "When they get here, you'll give it to them, okay?" He looked inside and read the note. He didn't laugh. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded and said, "Should I smile when I give it to them?" "You decide," I said. At 4:45 p.m., I started tidying the living room. Not to impress them. I just wanted control. The floors were clean, the couch was fluffed. Caleb's photo sat quietly on the mantel, watching everything. I lit one candle on the coffee table. Lemon and cedarwood. It smelled like something alive. At exactly 5:05 p.m., the doorbell rang. Micah looked at me. I nodded. He walked to the door, opened it, and there they were. My mother wore pearls and lipstick. My father had on a navy sweater, the one he used to wear when he wanted to look approachable. They smiled like it was Thanksgiving. "We brought tea," Lillian said, holding up a paper bag with handles. "Your favorite." Chamomile Micah said nothing. He simply held out the gift bag. My father took it. "What's this?" Micah shrugged. "It's from Mom. She said you'd understand." They stepped inside. I stood behind the hallway wall, watching. I didn't rush out. I wanted them to read it first. My father pulled out the papers, unfolded them. His face twitched slightly when he reached the sticky note. "Is this a copy of Caleb's will?" my mother asked, her voice uncertain. My father read the note aloud. "We know why you're here." Their smiles faded. My mother looked at the floor. My father's jaw tightened. I walked into the room, slow and steady. "You didn't come when he died. You didn't check on your grandson. You waited until there was something to gain. I wanted you to have this copy, so there's no confusion about who Caleb left everything to. I also wanted you to see the note, so there's no confusion about what this is." Lillian opened her mouth, then closed it. Gordon looked at me, his expression stony. "I think you should go now," I said. Micah stood beside me, not afraid, not confused, just quiet, watching. Without a word, they turned and left. The tea bag still sat on our kitchen counter, unopened. That night, I poured it down the drain. The house was silent after they left. I didn't cry. I didn't sit down. I stood by the window for a long time, watching their car pull out of the driveway. I wanted to make sure they were really gone before I let my breath go. Micah came up beside me and leaned into my arm. "They didn't even say thank you," he said. "No," I replied. "They didn't." He looked up. "Are they coming back?" "I don't think so," I said. "But if they do, we'll be ready again." He nodded once, then walked back to his Legos like it was just another Tuesday. And in a way, that's what I needed it to be. Ordinary, uncomplicated, the end of something. But I couldn't shake one thought. If they were willing to come here with smiles and tea because of what Caleb left behind, what would they do next? I'd seen what they were capable of, not just their absence, but their calculated return. I needed to be ready for whatever might follow. The next morning, I made calls. I set up a meeting with our lawyer, Emily, a woman Caleb had worked with to draft the estate plan. She had kind eyes, but a spine of steel. I asked her to walk me through every detail of the trust and how to protect it moving forward. Emily explained that everything Caleb left had already been legally transferred to me and Micah. The documents were airtight. My parents had no claim, no standing, and no reason to challenge the will, unless they were willing to lie, manipulate, or find someone to do it for them. "What do I do if they come back with questions?" I asked. "You say nothing," she replied. "You're not obligated to explain your life or your finances to people who weren't there when it mattered." That line stayed with me. It settled deep in my chest and felt like armor. That night, I sat on the living room floor with Micah and told him the full truth. "Your dad worked hard to make sure we'd be okay," I said. "He saved, he invested, and he built something to take care of us. He didn't talk about it much, but he did it all for us." Micah listened without interrupting, his little brow furrowed in concentration. "So we have money now?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Enough that we won't have to worry about where we live or what we eat, enough to choose the kind of life we want." His eyes widened slightly. "Does that mean we can go to the beach?" I laughed, the first real laugh in weeks. "Yes, it means we can go to the beach, and we will." Then I told him something harder. "But it also means that some people might try to be close to us for the wrong reasons. People who weren't here when we needed them, like Grandma and Grandpa." Micah didn't seem surprised. "I don't think they really missed us," he said. "No," I said quietly. "They didn't." The next day, I made another decision. I went into the garage and pulled out a box of Caleb's belongings. Old clothes, tools, tech gear, things I hadn't been able to look at yet. I opened the box slowly, touching each item with care. I found his journal, half filled with notes on startups and business ideas. I found a USB drive labeled "just in case." I plugged it into my laptop. It was a letter, a video recording. Caleb sat in his home office wearing a plain gray t-shirt and looking into the camera with his usual calm. "If you're watching this, something went wrong," he said. "But if it did, I want you to know that I tried to plan for everything. The accounts are secure. The will is final. I chose to leave it all to you and Micah because I trust you to live the life we talked about." He paused. "You don't have to explain anything to anyone, not even your parents, especially not them." I watched the whole video, twice. I saved it, backed it up, and then printed a still image from it and framed it. I placed the frame on Micah's desk, a quiet reminder of who Caleb was and how fiercely he loved. That weekend, I took Micah to the beach. We walked barefoot on the sand, let the waves chase us, and ate ice cream before dinner. We didn't talk about the money or the will. We didn't talk about my parents. We talked about tide pools and seashells and whether or not dolphins sleep with their eyes open. That was the first day that felt like a beginning, not just a reaction to what happened, a choice to move forward. It was 2 weeks after the beach trip when my parents showed up again. No warning, no message. Just the sound of tires on gravel and the sharp knock of my father's hand against the front door. I saw them through the window. My mother was holding a plate wrapped in foil. My father stood next to her with that same practiced smile he wore at the funeral, the one that meant nothing. Micah was upstairs doing homework. I opened the door. "Hi, sweetheart." my mother said, her voice a little too bright. "We were just in the neighborhood." My father added, "We brought lemon bars, your favorite." "I didn't tell you to come," I said, blocking the doorway with my body. "We just wanted to talk," my mother replied, glancing toward the living room like she was trying to see if the gift bag was still there. "We feel like things ended awkwardly last time." "They ended honestly," I said. My father's smile dropped. "We're still your family, Amelia, like it or not." "You made that choice when you walked out of the funeral and didn't look back," I said. "You disappeared when I needed you. You didn't even call on Micah's birthday." He stepped forward. "I was angry. Grief makes people say things they don't mean." I folded my arms. "You meant every word. You've always thought Caleb was beneath me. Now you see what he left behind, and suddenly you're here with baked goods." They didn't deny it. My mother's hands trembled slightly, the lemon bars starting to sag in the foil. "You're misjudging us," she said, her voice breaking. "We were wrong. We know that now." I stepped aside just enough for them to enter, not because I trusted them, but because I needed them to see what they had lost. On the wall to the right of the entryway, I had hung a new picture. It was a printout from Caleb's final video, him looking into the camera, smiling. Beneath it, I had written in neat script, "Your silence was loud." He filled it with love. They both saw it immediately. My father's eyes narrowed. My mother looked down at the floor. "I want you to listen to something," I said, walking over to the coffee table. I grabbed the USB drive and plugged it into the TV. The screen flickered on and Caleb's face appeared. He looked alive, steady, comforting. He spoke in that calm, even voice. "If you're watching this, something happened to me. I'm sorry. I hate the idea of leaving you alone, but I want you to know I thought about everything. I planned as best I could." My mother gasped. My father didn't move. "I left everything to you and Micah," Caleb continued. "Not because I didn't trust anyone else, but because I didn't need to. You're enough. You always have been." I paused the video there. Silence settled in the room like dust. My parents looked at me, but I didn't flinch. "I let you in today so you could see who he was," I said. "So you could hear it from him. Not for your guilt, not for your comfort, and not because I need anything from you. I wanted you to see the kind of man you dismissed, the man you said wasn't smart enough, the man who built a future while you stood on the sidelines and judged." My father tried to speak, but I raised a hand. "You don't get to rewrite the story. You made your choices. You don't get to pretend they never happened just because they're inconvenient now." He swallowed hard and looked toward the door. "We should go." "Yes," I said. "You should." They walked out without another word. I stood at the door until their car turned off our street. Later that night, Micah asked why they had come again. "They came to see what they could take," I said. "They left with nothing because there was nothing left for them." He thought about that, then nodded. "Daddy gave it all to us." "Yes," I said, "every part that mattered." I sat beside him on the couch, and together we watched the rest of Caleb's video. Not because we needed to hear it again, but because we wanted to feel it again, to remember the love that came wrapped in planning, in foresight, in sacrifice. That moment was the closure I didn't know I needed. Not just the end of their involvement in our lives, but the beginning of something new. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was choosing. After that day, my parents never came back. They didn't call. They didn't send another message. They faded in the same way they had before, except this time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt relieved. Their silence no longer felt like punishment. It felt like peace. Micah asked fewer questions as the days passed. He started sleeping better. He hummed while brushing his teeth and ran through the house with the kind of ease kids should have. I watched him return to himself, little by little. His joy wasn't loud, but it was steady, like Caleb's had been. I donated most of the things my parents brought that day. I kept the lemon bars sealed until the expiration date and tossed them quietly into the trash, not out of spite. I just didn't want anything in our kitchen that had come from manipulation wrapped in powdered sugar. One morning, while packing Micah's lunch, I looked around the kitchen and realized I hadn't cried in weeks. That surprised me. Not because I thought I'd be over the grief, but because the grief had changed shape. It wasn't heavy like it had been, it moved differently. It taught me how to stand taller. Caleb's voice still echoed in the house sometimes, in the small things, the password on the Wi-Fi that only he would have chosen, the funny labels on our spice jars he made just to make me laugh. I didn't erase those things. I never will. They remind me that love can exist in the smallest, most practical acts. I used part of Caleb's portfolio to set up a fund for Micah. College, healthcare, anything he'll need in the future. I kept the rest invested the way Caleb would have wanted, steady, strategic, long-term. I took a few thousand and booked us a trip to Yellowstone. Micah wants to see bison in real life. I told him we'll get as close as the park rangers allow. The night before the trip, we packed our bags together. Micah was excited about his binoculars and a notebook he wanted to use to draw animals. As we zipped up his bag, he turned to me and asked, "Are we going to be okay forever?" I didn't pause. "Yes, we are." Not because of the money, not because the house is paid off or because the numbers on a screen are high enough to make my parents reappear. We're going to be okay because I learned how to protect us, even after the one person who always did was gone. Caleb didn't just leave us assets, he left us clarity. He showed me how to prepare, how to choose peace over performance, and how to stop making space for people who only show up when there's something to gain. I used to crave my parents' approval. I bent myself to fit their expectations and twisted myself in conversations trying to earn some version of their pride. I spent years thinking that if I worked hard enough, stayed polite enough, or succeeded just right, they would see me. But I see myself now, that's enough. Micah doesn't need to inherit trauma disguised as tradition. He doesn't need to grow up learning how to shrink himself for family. He needs to know what love looks like when it's real, what it sounds like when someone shows up without being asked, what it feels like to be chosen without condition. That's the legacy Caleb left, and this is the life we're building from it. To anyone watching this who's felt abandoned in the middle of grief, who's watched people walk away when you needed them most, I want to say this. You don't owe anyone access to your healing. You don't have to let someone back in just because they show up smiling. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to move forward without dragging the weight of other people's disappointment behind you. Grief changes you. It strips you down, but it also shows you what's real. It showed me my son's strength, my husband's quiet brilliance, and my own ability to choose something better. Not just survival, not just getting by, but a life built with purpose, clarity, and love. And we're just getting started. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you of your own strength, your own loss, or your own journey back to peace, I hope you'll share it. Someone out there might need to hear that they're not alone. Leave a comment, tell me your story. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, real ones, raw ones, the kind no one talks about but everyone feels, subscribe to the channel. I have more to tell. Thank you for being here. We're stronger than we think, and we're never really alone when we speak our truth.